Thank you. Hello, everyone. We'll talk a bit about security for at least probably one hour and a half, and then we will be able to exchange a few questions. If you have any remarks for the specific subjects, please ask your question during the presentation, not obviously at the end. I will ask you some questions too, so please answer the question, otherwise I will feel very lonely. Today we'll go through three main subjects aside from who I am. We'll see some basics, so always the basics, but we'll have to go through this again and again to ensure that everyone knows the basics and do not forget them along the time. We'll talk a little bit about development, and the last part will be AI focused. First, who am I? I'm a former DevOps. I worked for the CCI into P3 for 4 years, between 2015 and 2019. I then worked as a full-time pen tester. Pen tester is not someone who tests pens. It's an acronym for penetration tester. And now I'm an associate in a security company I built. And what I mostly do is essentially pen test again and development. So what do I do exactly and why I'm here to speak about security? I do mostly offensive penetration tests on various perimeters, web perimeters, application, light application and heavy application software, networks, infrastructure, cloud, etc., etc. Almost every perimeter you can think of, I will be able to test it in a secure way. I'm like a white hacker if you want a parallel. I also do talks and training like this one. And I'm developing Exaface, which is an EASM solution. Do you know what EASM means? It's external attack surface management. It's mostly creating an inventory of every internet-facing assets of a company, a public institution, anyone, and then finding risks on these internet-facing assets. It's essentially used by companies to protect themselves, and it's the same process hackers use to attack companies. So let's start with the basics. First, the passwords. First question, who thinks they manage their passwords correctly or well? Yes, not that much. Okay, second question. Who uses a password manager? Okay, so some people don't think they manage their password well, but uses a password manager. Interesting. Let's move on. Which kind of password manager do you use?
Google Chrome.
Okay, Google Chrome. So browser like password manager. Does anyone use the KeePass or Bitwarden, for example? Okay, good. At least more than one person. It's good. Just a few reminders. At a minimum, complies with ANSI recommendation, which are 12 characters, 1 upper, 1 digit, 1 special. This is a minimum, not the things you have to do specifically. Generate your passwords, and not with your brain, with your password manager, please. Because if you use your brain, you will always have the same part in your various passwords. You will always use 2 digits, which are the same, or the same word, and make something varies, which creates a first problem. Imagine 2 passwords. The first one is first exclamation point 20, and the second is second exclamation point 20. The security resides in the first word, because we just have to find one password and then analyze how you could create your password, and this will lower the security and it will help us break your password. You have a question?
Yeah, just so it's better for us to remember the password that you use.
Yes, but you don't need to remember the password. You should not remember your password. If you try to remember your password, you can remember at least 10 different and complex passwords, not more. So you won't be able to create one password for one application. This will be completely impossible. So you will reuse password, and reusing password, you know what that means. Use a password manager to avoid remembering passwords. Enable MFA everywhere, or try the passwordless solution like passkey. Most of the well-known websites gives you the possibility to create passkey, which are identification for one device, which lets you connect to your account without specifying a password, without setting up multiple factor of authentication. But at least try MFA if you don't want to use password manager. I already found people who told me that they don't want to. Enable MFA, so we'll have multiple factor, at least 2, to authenticate to your account. So you can have a pretty bad password if you have MFA. A very long password is always better than short and complex one, because sometimes size matters. So yeah, you will preferably have a 40-character long password, easy to remember, than one following the ANSI recommendation, because after a specific amount of characters, we don't try to break passwords, because of course your colleague will have a weaker password, so we'll try your colleague one. Just a bit of a reminder, this is a survey made by Hive System that is published every year, and it tells you how many times it takes to break. This time it's a bcrypt with 10 iterations, so it's quite safe to use bcrypt nowadays, it's the recommendation. And with only 12 RTX 5090, under 12 characters, it can be doable if you have numbers only, for example. But if you follow what the ANSI recommendations, it will take 3 billion years to break your password, so we won't try. We'll try with weaker algorithm or weaker passwords. We can also lower this. This is pure brute force, so we will iterate over each possibilities. To gain times, you can try word list or rainbow tables if you have one. You will gain some times, but you create a constraint since if the password is not in the word list, you won't be able to find it. At least the more you have in your word list, the better chance you have to find the password. And over time, you will make it grow over and over. So if your password is old enough to be in a word list, so probably more than 2 years, consider changing it. It would be better. Quick reminder about the phishing, just an update on new techniques. I know everyone here encounters at least once phishing, and especially in the last years, the phishing has developed quite hard. So it works as always. It's always based on 2 factors, trust and emergency. This one hasn't changed at all, because it still works. It's more real than ever because it's AI powered. Thanks to AI, we can create really a realistic AI scenario. We make you do what we want. Does anyone of you got a call probably last year? There was many of them. So, you first hear a keyboard sound, and then sometimes nobody speaks, and then it says, hello, I'm someone from the energy department. Do you recall that? No? Some of you have. So this is AI power, purely AI power. This is phishing. It's phishing over the phone, but it's still phishing. And it worked quite well, because if you don't hear someone on the phone, you will say hello, and then it will start the scenario the AI has built. Some of the scenarios related to phishing are still based on typo squatting and confusion. Confusion, it's, I have an example, you're waiting for a package to be delivered and you receive smishing, it's phishing over SMS or message like WhatsApp, etc. And the message says, are you at home, or I'm the I'm the one delivering your package. Are you here? And if you say no, they will say, okay, make a new appointment on this site to be able to get your package another day. And this site is purely a fake page, redirecting you to another things or asking you for specific information. So be careful of that because they are based on confusion. You probably receive a package frequently, so it's easy to say it can happen. And it's sometimes based on typo squatting. Do you know what typo squatting is? No one?
It's when a letter looks like another?
Yeah. It's when you change something from the original URL. So it can be common misspelling. So here we just had the RE particle. It can be adding 3W directly in the URL without the dots. It can be changing only the domain suffixes, adding a S, for example, here, or here adding hyphens, or changing the letters. Changing the letters is the most common because, for example, the L and the I in caps lock won't be, you won't be able to differentiate it on your phone, for example, or in an email. So it's easy to read it, and it's easy to fall for it. So now you know what typo squatting is. And buying domain names, it's quite cheap, so it's common used for every phishing attack nowadays. Even the government has problem with typo squatting. A little bit about traveling. What place or location do you consider to be risky? So I've made a list. So which one can you consider? Can you order a little from the riskier to the less riskier? Do you have any idea? Hotel room is the riskier? Sorry, I didn't understand the... Which one is the top one?
Restaurant, train, friends, place. Oh, no train. It's train. The network is not working on train. So that's the problem.
So train, you think, or hotel room?
Restaurant.
Restaurant, okay.
Friends, place because there is a big risk.
So if we want to order them a little, so at least you know every one of them is risky, but not at the same level and not for the same reason. So the riskier is the train, bus, and plane. You probably don't have access to internet, but it doesn't matter. If you open your PC and do some work, reading notes, exchanging with someone, you can share information to anyone near you. So probably the person in front of you, at the back, or in the diagonal. It happens all the time. It's really easy to gather information during transport. Hotel room is the second one. Not because of the hotel room itself, but because you can be followed or you can try to break into the hotel room and steal your PC. If your PC is not protected enough, it will be easy to retrieve information. And also because the hotel room offers free Wi-Fi and open Wi-Fi, and you are not the only one to use it. So attackers may listen to the networks and gather information using your trust in the network you are connected to. Conference room, like this one, because you leave your belongings in the conference room during the coffee breaks or during the lunch. But for example, if you want to enter the lab, it's pretty easy. This morning, nobody was upstairs, and I was able to sit in the conference room. Who know who I am, aside from Thomas? You understand the problem? So be careful of your belongings. Do not trust too much people around you, and careful of people you don't know, especially. But don't be paranoid too. Cafe and restaurant, yeah, is a good place to exchange information, business information, or elsewhere. But people are listening, of course. And friend's place, it's the same as it's the same problem as the hotel room. What about the networks? What does your friend do on his networks? You don't know. He has devices connecting to his networks. Are those devices safe? Probably not. So be careful of that. prefer 3G, 4G, 5G. 5G is still better than 3G, of course. But yeah, prefer your mobile data than your friend's Wi-Fi. Did we get internet through Wi-Fi while coming to the S3 school? For example, in the train, in the restaurant? Here? Yes? So did you connect to a free and open Wi-Fi? It happens sometimes, okay.
We have a free and open Wi-Fi in the hotel we're in.
Okay. Do you trust the provider? But you're still connected to the Wi-Fi. Okay. So open and free Wi-Fi is the exact opposite of secure Wi-Fi. Why? Because if you connect to the Wi-Fi, it's okay. You don't know how it's managed. Sometimes all the clients connected are segregated in a specific place, and sometimes they are not, so everybody is on the same level. And sometimes you can have those kind of warning. So if you are if you find them quite often, you will probably click on advanced and continue. If you see that on a website you don't know, please click on go back, never on advanced and continue. It's probably because someone has created a tunnel between the endpoint and you, and is trying to sniff your connections and steal your data. It's pretty easy to set up. You can find any software on the internet, and you can set up it in 2 minutes. And sometimes they use the open Wi-Fi name. For example, if one time you have gone to the McDonald's and connected to the free Wi-Fi called McDonald's, I can easily set up a Wi-Fi endpoint called McDonald's. And once you connected once, by default, all your devices will automatically connect to a device to a Wi-Fi they already know. So you will automatically connect to my endpoint, which I control, and I do what I want on my endpoint. But you probably don't know about this. So be careful about open and free Wi-Fi. I suggest you to disable the auto connection to non-Wi-Fi. It's better to force it yourself. Some good habits to adopt: lock your session. Yes?
Even if you have a VPN?
You can use free Wi-Fi if you have a VPN, like it's written here. But it's still better to use mobile data if you can, or if you can't, at least connect to the free Wi-Fi with the VPN. Lock your session. Every time you leave your computer, lock your session. Even if you leave for 2 minutes, you don't know, I can stick a USB key, and we can think of many scenarios after that. So just two key on your keyboard to lock your session. Privacy filter, if you can work on the train, but at least with a privacy filter. So anyone can't see your screen, can't see what you are doing. Of course, if you are playing on your computer, it's okay to do not have a privacy filter. A VPN connection is the must when you are connecting to a network you don't know. Computer encryption is pretty good, especially if you go to another country or a place you don't know, because if we steal your computer and it's not running, we can't access the data. Computer encryption can be done on the fly on pretty much every operating system, so enable it. It won't affect your performance. It will add a security layer on your data on your computer, and it's free, so yeah, why not? And think a bit, like the warning I show here. If you see that when going to google.com or your bank website, it's probably a problem, because they all have security in place, so you should not see this kind of warning.
There are some,
Yes?
some web pages that are not with HTTPS, so
Not that much nowadays. Yeah, they still exist, and if they exist and don't ask for specific information, don't ask you to log in or to provide information, it's okay, because you have a website only showing information. It's okay to consult them if they don't have HTTPS. at least browser will try to add HTTPS on every website you try to access. So if they exist in the HTTPS version, you will have it. But if you have a login form or etc., please go to another website. Or you can consider your account to be not secure at all. Don't show what you don't want people to see. Like every time you see something on your phone, if you don't want people to see, hide it. It's pretty easy, especially when traveling, but it's not easy to think about all of these points at once. So going through all of them and making them an habit will help you enhance your security. Security hygiene. Does that mean anything to you? Yes? No? Not really? What kind of data are we talking about? So it's essentially data you create when you create something on the net. So any kind of data. Photo on social media or shares, video, publications, certificate personal, histories, browsing, and chatbots. So probably any kind of information you create or you add when you consider a website, when you do something, aside from just reading content. And what's the purpose of public data about you for a security perspective? What can I do with this? Because this is really, really interesting. Nowadays, probably nobody has no records of him or his habits or anything related to him on the internet. Probably everybody has at least one result. And the more, the younger you are, the more information we have on you. So what can I do with those information? Yes? Yes. Impersonification. What else? Yes?
Collect it and sell it?
Yes, we can collect it and sell it, sure. Yes. Exactly. And that's what we want. We'll do three main topics. Impersonation. This will help us do any kind of thing in your name. So contracts, loans, etc. Phishing and other variation, because if in the phishing there is your name, there is your address, there is your IBAN, this will help build some trust regarding the content we will provide to you, and this will help us making a good attack. So the more we have, the easier it becomes. And the psychological analysis for everything you will do, especially creating creating passwords. Because if you create your password and don't handle them with a password manager, it will be easy to find birth dates, places, people around you. So probably you will add them in your password because it's easy to remember. We'll also add studies that have been published about which special character you will use depending on your mother tongue. For example, if you are a French people, you will probably use the exclamation point and the star. And it depends on every language. So we'll add that, build a word list, and then try to break your password. We can also create connections between websites or profiles to ensure that it's you and that you have a profile on this part, on this social media, and ensure that the flow of information is connected well together. I also want to make a point about chatbots. So we'll go after that in the dedicated section, but none than last year, ChatGPT was indexing, Google was indexing all chatbot histories that were shared. So if you share your research of ChatGPT using the share button, they will be indexed by Google. So pretty easy to find. And of course, in your prompts, there is obviously sensitive data. Not all the time, but we have found enough data to say that be careful of a chatbot and the share functions. They are not secure as all the services you use. They are not more secure, at least. But yeah. And last point, always remember that internet never forgets. It's not because it's not accessible now that we can't find it, for example, on archive websites and etc. So even if you delete it, from the moment you add it on the internet, we can retrieve it afterwards. Do you have any question on this first third of the presentation related to the basics? No question? Okay. Let's talk about development and security, of course. I would just want to make a big picture of what we will discuss and when the security will occur during a development process. So it's a pretty condensed one. I've not covered all the topics related to development because we can talk about it during multiple days. So I'll just focus on specific points. Imagining that developing an application, it's like making a sandwich. First, you have what the user sees. So we'll go from macro to micro. What the user sees, so it's the website, the application window, so essentially the UI. Second part, it's what you master. So the source code, the features, the errors, and what the user sees, of course, because you are the developer. Next part, it's what you use and depend on to build the part you really master. So frameworks, libraries, package, of course, it includes languages, etc. And the last part, it's what supports your application, operating system, environment, and the hardware. Sometimes you do all those things, especially if you have a DevOps profile, but most of the time you do one of those things and master and are an expert on one of those things, but they are all related altogether from a security perspective. So the good practice are those ones. Assume that you will not be able to control everything. Even if you do every part of the sandwich, you will not be able to control everything. So you will have to rely on specific things. Why? Because technologies are evolving pretty quickly. So every 2 or 5 years, there are complete break changes about main technologies, new language, doing things we haven't seen before, new implementation, AI, for example. Software have short life cycle. For the most new one, we are on 3 months or 6 months life cycle and release. It's kind of impossible to follow, especially if you build an application that will grow over time. So we'll make the first updates and then stop the updates. So you will get what we call a technical debt, which you won't be able to feel over time. And it's quite hard to be an expert at everything. So make sure that you are helped with people that masters the levels you are not mastering. Track the product and technologies you use. It's not because you use them like millions of people that it's not a good idea to track them, to know if there are updates, to know if there are security patches, to know if there are deprecation and incompatibilities. Deprecation, of course, will have a big impact on security because it will say that you won't be able to get any updates in the future, but deprecation and incompatibilities, especially incompatibilities, will create vulnerabilities where they are not, because you will have incoherence between your code and the things running in your code, and this will create vulnerabilities over time. Keep an eye on security release and their contents. If you understand the security bulletin, it's good, but if you don't understand them, at least just check if they are not written critical. If it's critical, of course, apply the security patch. Aside from that, there are people specialized in security which will do this work for you, so it's okay to not master everything. package repositories can be more dangerous than insecure code. You can write insecure code, or you can write secure code, of course. But if you rely on frameworks and libraries, external libraries, package repositories can be a way to make your application insecure, where even if you code correctly. We'll go through one or two examples afterwards. Yes?
I'm not sure to understand how incompatibilities can be security.
Incompatibilities will make some of the components not work the way you were expecting them. So if you upgrade the frameworks and uses a function that has been deprecated, it's probably because it's not secure enough or not working like they should do, and they can create vulnerabilities like buffer overflow over time because they do not handle the data correctly. So you create small incompatibilities, which can result in vulnerabilities. But it's not that common. It still exists, incompatibilities creating vulnerabilities, but it's not that common. The main point retails in deprecations, where those function is not used anymore. It's marked as deprecated, still exists in the code, still usable, and still vulnerable, of course. Microsoft are the specialist in this section of deprecation because probably every 2 months, security researchers find functions that are not used anymore and can be exploited to gain privileges, etc. Because the technical depth is really big. It relies on 10 billion lines of code, though, so yeah, quite hard to review all the code all the time. Just an aparté on supply chain attack. Do you know what supply chain attack is? Yes? No? Any idea? You have an idea? Can you tell us what a supply chain attack is? Sorry, I didn't hear. Yes. So you attack the dependencies instead of the software itself. It's a pretty good definition. So how a supply chain attack starts? External libraries, credential theft, vulnerabilities, of course, coding error, and social engineering. The goal is always to not attack the software directly, but to attack component of the software. So part of the sandwich you don't master. What are the goals of those attackers? Pretty much always the same, so data theft, persistence, lateral movement to compromise other systems. And what about the impact? Depends on the discovery time and action taken, sometimes irreversible. Why do I talk about supply chain attacks? It's because it's the most common and the most impactful from the last 2 years and probably the next 2 years, I think. Because when you are attacked on your application, you know that it's centered on your application and you can focus on this vulnerable point. But when it comes from the supply chain attack, for example, specific libraries, you have to ensure that all your developers using these libraries are safe. You have to ensure that there was no lateral movement, no credential theft, etc., etc. It's like creating a small ball which will grow over and over the more time passed from the start of the attack. So it's really impactful. Every big company has experienced at least one supply chain attack. And the most recent one was, I remember it was one client we are working for, and they got a supply chain attack, and during 3 days, no release of code, no patching, no nothing. So 80 developers who can't work. Of course, during Christmas time, so big business impact. They were able to come back live, but it it was at a great cost. And all because of external libraries. One was compromised, and then credentials were stolen, and then hosts were accessible, other accounts were compromised, etc., etc. Why are attackers focusing on supply chain attack? Do you have any idea? I almost answered the question, but less obvious? Not really, because when you face a supply chain attack, you see it. But the real problem is that it's really hard to stop it in an instant. But for attackers, it's really easy to exploit because there are many entry points. Instead of one entry point, your application, we can attack the CI/CD, we can attack developers via social engineering, we can attack libraries or code repositories or etc., package manager, etc. So there are many, many, many entry points. And since there are many entry points, it's easier to find at least one or more that where we can conduct an attack. At the end of 2025, GitLab's exposed a widespread attack on NPM, to the package manager you probably all know about. NPM, it's not the first time NPM is compromised, or at least packages are compromised. But here is what happens when during a supply chain attack. So first, the developer installed an infected package. So they are not installing infected package knowing they are infected. Of course, it's a renowned package that became infected because the source code was stolen or the code repository was accessed by anyone malicious. At the end of the day, the package is infected. It will execute a malicious payload directly on your computer. So when you type npm install, it's too late. At the moment you type it, there are pre-hook scripts that will be executed before the library is installed, and the scripts will harvest credentials on your computer. So everything in your environment and configuration files accessible with your user, so pretty much all your development environment, will be harvested and sent elsewhere in resource control by the attackers. And with that, we will access other if you are an npm developer, of course, they will infect other package. And then we will access the GitHub repo, for example, and the infrastructure if you use CI/CD, for example. So code going directly through production, for example, the serverless. Do you know what serverless is? Yes? No? Serverless is a configuration file which will create a machine on which your application will work. So it's instead of installing the old way the server that will run your application, you just write a bit of configuration file and it will run it for you. And everything is stored, of course, in the GitHub repo. So this will give you access to the infrastructure. So we started from an infected package, and now we have access to a company infrastructure. From the company infrastructure, we will do lateral movement to exfiltrate other data, destroy user data, get access to other accounts, etc., etc. This spreads pretty quickly. For every company who was infected by it, it takes less than 1 day to get access to the infrastructure. Why? Because the developer always has privileged access on the system, on the development machines, etc. So getting access to that is pretty easy, and it's easy to automate the whole process, the whole workflow. So be careful about package repositories. They are the most used and the most destructive attacks on large-scale business as of now. Of course, if you are a smaller business, this will have an impact, but it's limited to a business. But it will occur in big businesses, sorry. And most of the time, it's combined with exploitation and vulnerabilities targeting internet-facing assets. So once you got supply chain attack and access to lower infrastructure, the attacker will start attacking your internet access to help you focus on another subject and avoid paying attention to the underlying attack. If you want more, there is a top 10 of supply chain attack in 2025, which is accessible on this link. You can have a look, and you will see big companies' names in there, little less than, probably essentially big companies, but you will find companies that are less known. Sometimes the data stolen are not made public, but sometimes they are, and sometimes they contain personal information, of course, which will help other attackers create phishing attacks, etc. So the whole process will start again. Just an extra news about dependency confusion. Summer 2020, Justin Gardner, which is a bug hunter. Do you know what a bug hunter is? It's someone specialized in cybersecurity like myself, but instead of working for companies, he works on the open programs of cybersecurity and is rewarded for every vulnerabilities he found. So it's full-time job to find vulnerabilities and getting paid for it, but not with a contract limited in time. So he shared this code snippet of Node.js application on GitHub, and this code snippet belongs to PayPal. Do you see the problem? Yes?
Seventh line.
The what?
Seventh line.
The line 7? This one? Why? It's not because I said that there is a problem that there is a problem, but at least there is one.
PP logger version?
The PP logger, no. No, it's a way to say that I want this version on this major and not the next major, etc. It's a way to define the version you want to use and restrict it. So it's not this part. No idea. Remember that the company is PayPal. So the problem here is that PayPal is using custom libraries, which are called PayPal. It's pretty okay. But the code of these libraries is not publicly available, of course, because it's internal packages. But what happens if I create on PP or NPM a package called Analytics PayPal with a higher version? Which library will I get on my computer when I type install? The one from PayPal internals, if I am a PayPal developer, or the one from the package repository? This is the problem. Dependency confusion. So you create a malicious package with the exact same name. You get a higher version because you can define the version you want with the malicious code. You just wait for someone to install it, someone working from PayPal or who has access to this library or want to use it, because it's not normally publicly available, and because your computer will always try to gather the external the library coming from the package manager instead of the local repo. You will get my version, And then I will install whatever I want using pre-install script or pre-hook script and exfiltrate data over DNS and repeat over and over and over. This problem still exists in actual configuration. So make sure that you retrieve version coming from package manager you trust. Or if you are using internal package, make sure that your source is above the source coming from the external package manager. Otherwise, you can get the code. You can get some code you don't know or you don't trust, just because we use the same name. Okay. And it still happens because it was released just 2 days ago on Ruby application, so it still works. And if you don't specify the source, you will get the one from the package manager. So I will let you have a look on those articles. Next good practice, yes?
You told look out for the packages from the trusted sources, but I can write a code, I build a package and upload it in
Yes?
a package manager is like gone down and everything. How do I verify if that is trustworthy?
How do you ensure that it's your code and not the code coming from someone else? So if you push a new package, you will be the owner of this package. You can just deny all other.
Was pushed it, and I see that okay, maybe this works for my use case.
Yeah.
How do I know that it is not malicious? It is something I can
Just go to the code repo and read the code. So because packages are scanned, there are always ways to evade security scanners. So the best way is to read the code if you want to use external libraries, or just get the piece of code you want. For the most known package, the problem doesn't exist because there are always reviews, there are always people that try to find vulnerabilities, at least at the exception of XZ, which was compromised during many years, and attack just abort after its release, but it's another story. If you use the package that is not well known, it probably don't have that much of a code, or you take the risk that the content is malicious. If you can review the code, it's always better. And if you use a library, it's probably because you code in this language, so you can just read the code and see if it executes commands on your systems or push data on the internet. Yes?
So attackers will target packages that are the most used or the ones that are the least watched?
The least watched, probably. The most used is they can compromise one of the developer accounts. It's better because they will get access to full trust. And they will target internal packages, sometimes because configuration files are pushed or discovered, and then they will use dependency confusion, as I said before. It's the easier way is still dependency confusion, because it will depend on how your development environment is configured, and most of the time it's not configured to retrieve local sources before external sources. So, yeah.
So during the week, we have used Pixie, the package manager,
Yeah.
to log files. Does that prevent these kind of problems? The log files, because all the dependencies that are pinned to an exact solution.
Yes, if the version pinned are not vulnerable yet, but at least it will lock you in this version. If we can't modify the pin version, you won't get any new vulnerability. But at the time the file will be made new, will be updated, and the pin version will change, you will have to take a special care to look at the new version to ensure that it doesn't contain vulnerabilities. Yes. But people will review package for you. They are people specialized in code review. Yes?
I always have the question, just reading the code, if a security scanner doesn't detect it, how would a non-expert in the code detect a security problem? It's very difficult, right? It's usually obfuscated.
Yeah, but always remember that static analysis is based on the code itself. It doesn't take into account the running code. And it's based on pattern recognition.
But isn't that also what my brain would do, reading the code, pattern recognition, and not running it? So
yeah.
How do you know?
But if you use the language often, you know that a specific function should not be used. If you follow security guidelines, or at least you know that execution of system commands should not be there. Or if they are, you can review the content of this execution. And you can.
The security scanner, fine. That's what I was wondering. I mean, usually with the security scanners I've used, they immediately tell you there's a system. You're calling system, or you're calling eval or something
yeah.
that's very dangerous. What else would you look for? That's my question, I guess. Like, what can I do more than just what I would...
More than security scanners?
I mean, are there tools you can use when you're running the code to look for malicious contacting of other websites or something like that?
Yeah, you can use sandboxes, but it's not trivial to do. To see what your package is doing with the external world. But it's not trivial to use. It's pretty much, if you're a security researcher, you will do it, but not if you're just a developer. Probably you won't have time to do that. Yeah, you can rely on tools, but there are many ways to bypass the tools. For example, the eval function, it can be written a way that the static analysis won't detect it, but you will see it with your eyes because you will see eval in multiple lines, for example, and you will be able to tell, oh, it uses system functions that where the static analyzer won't be able to compact all the elements because it's based on patterns. But if it's written eval, for example, it will detect it and say, hello, there is a problem. But at least if you use security scanners, for example, on GitHub Repo, you have to manually run them on the code you are using to ensure that you see all the bullet points that are highlighted. Because if you use the code on GitHub, you won't see a security report saying that it uses insecure function or otherwise. Yeah. It doesn't implement a security score based on guidelines, etc. Maybe in the future. Implement the security guidelines or the coding guidelines if we don't want to specifically speak about security, because they provide a good start base when thinking about security. It will tell you, avoid using these functions, pay attention to this point, essentially those points. It will help you pay attention on critical and weak points. It can be generic or language technology specific, and both of them should be used. Like in this presentation, we all talk about generic points. But if you take the security guidelines for your language, you will add a specific recommendation for your language that should be applied. In most of the case, it's not documents that are that long because they are made to be usable. So just read it at least once, and you will maybe remove something in your program that should not be there. And if they don't exist, you can always seek for OWASP guidelines, which we'll talk about later. But do you know what OWASP is? No? Okay, so we'll talk about this in just a few moments. This is my favorite part. Never trust the users. Never. Why? Because they will always find a way to do things you don't want. They will break your program, create errors that you can't reproduce on your computer, and of course, when it's attackers, they will find vulnerabilities. So the less possibilities you give them, the less insecure your code will be. And if you have no interaction, for example, if you don't get any data from the user, so probably you are writing a plain text file, it will be secure, but one small interaction can conduct to vulnerabilities. it will always depend on what you do with the data you are getting from anyone outside of your application. Anyone or any program, anything you rely on. Test and audit your code. The more you test, the better. The more other people test your code or your workflow, the less error there will be. Because errors will give information to an attacker to how to find vulnerabilities, error codes, error in behavior, stack traces. This gives information to an attacker. So is there a vulnerability? Probably yes. How do I exploit it? Just read the error. It will give you information. Auditing your code should not be an option. And something you do if you have time. You always get time to audit your code. Why? Because there are tools to do that. So please add those tools in your CI pipeline. It will do it automatically. It will raise major errors. So take a look at the report. It's not the best you can do, but at least it's a minimum. It's pretty easy to implement. Sometimes there are always examples on how to audit my code, review my code, analyze it. So you can review the issues and fix them if you have time, of course. But at least you know. Some example of tools, you have SonarQube, which is a meta tools using SameGrep, for example, on specific language, which will statically analyze your code, Veracode, and all the tools implemented in GitLab, which probably you used already. GitLab, not for obviously the tools, but at least they exist. You can use the CI, define the file, which will get my code, run it through SameGrep or the analyzer you want, and give me a report. Do I have problems? Do I have pushed secrets in my repository? It can find secrets too. Yeah. You don't always have to use AI to find secrets in your code. There are tools that still exist. And there are more here in the OWASP website. You will find many references to OWASP because it's like a library of techniques, attack techniques, and guidelines, etc. So most of the resources come from OWASP. You can find so here you will find guidelines for your language too, and points to take care of on critical points to ensure that you have a review on. Yes?
If I have Python code, and what tools can you give me to make a first step in security, some kind of quick and dirty things, and then after spend more time to work on security. But so, okay, I need to secure my code at least the minimum. What is the best tools, or the quicker tools?
Yeah, you can use the GitLab CI with a specific file definition. If you look for a static analyzer Python GitLab, you will find a file definition that will run the static analyzer altogether. Or you can use SonarQube, which has a Docker container. You can just run the SonarQube container, add your code inside the tool. It will run the analyzer and give you a graphical report on the different issues, and it will sort them if there are security issues, maintainability issues, usability issues, etc. So you will have a pretty good look on those things. And it will automatically select the analyzer for your language, because it will detect it coming from your code repository. So if you use multiple languages, it will use multiple analyzer to give you this report. They are free. Yeah. SonarQube has a community edition, Veracode is free, and GitLab is free and provided at the INTP3 level, so you can probably use it.
For GitLab, the security tools are not in the paid subscription?
On GitLab.com, yes, probably. But if you use the IN2P3 instance, I think you can have access to the CI.
For GitHub, what do you?
Or on GitHub, you also have that, yeah. Mm.
I already have to push some code with API key on GitHub and say, oh, there is an API key in your code.
Yeah. So probably you will have to change your API keys. It's too late to remove them. Like always, if you push the secret, change it. Don't think you can erase it, it's too late. Because the moment you push, someone probably has cloned your repository because there are attackers which create tools based on patterns that will look for every push and patterns in those push. We will detect API keys, secrets, etc. and gather them. At the time you see that you pushed your secret, it's still too late. So better to change it. Dupe to yourself a little. Is this dependency really necessary? Sometimes we install external libraries just for one function. Maybe we can just use the code for this function instead of the whole library. Why? Because in a big library, there is always vulnerability that doesn't concern you directly, but at the moment you include them, you are probably vulnerable. So the less, the better. Is it actively maintained? Sometimes you find code that do exactly what you want, but no updates. Since 2 years, it's better to find another way to do what you want than installing non-updated dependency. Should I recode this? Probably not all the time, sometimes, but don't try to rethink something that works well. If you think about a piece of code and it's included in a larger library, prefer use the version in the external library, the larger one, because there are a lot of maintainers that can find bugs, that can find vulnerabilities, where if you recode this part yourself, you will have to do this work, and you probably won't have time to do all of that and maintain it. So sometimes it's better to use external libraries. So those are the completely aside remarks. Did I think of most of the possibilities? We'll see an example afterwards, but if you give the possibility to a user, did you think of all the things he can do with what you give them? If you give them an input field, what can happen? What can he provide in this input field? Did I think of everything? Did I lock him in the least? Did I constrain it in the lowest possible environment or not? So probably this part is better to. If you want to think of all the possibilities, you will have to use tools. You will have to use other people because not all people think the same. So there may be someone who will have an ID that you don't think of, and you can implement the patch for his IDs. It's the same for this remark. So always use human, or you can use AI, which works pretty well. And one source might not be enough to go full blind. If you find a piece of code, probably better to try to find other sources that speak about this kind of code. Because if you find a piece of code and apply it directly, if you are lucky, this code is safe, and if you are unlucky, this code is malicious. So you will be vulnerable at the time you use this source. It's the same problem with information when you look at the actualities. You probably will read multiple sources to ensure that the news is correct instead of one source and trust it. Same for development. Good practices. To sum up all of this, assume that you will not be able to control everything, track the products and technologies you use, implement the security guidelines, never trust the users, of course, test and audit your code, because the first level of test and audit is still easy to implement, and dupe yourself a little. Don't go full blind on what you are doing. just an extra I added this morning about the containers and especially Dockers. You can apply what I will talk about to all the container technology, but those are pretty much specific to Dockers because it's the most used if you don't use cloud instances like Kubernetes, etc. So this one is for the personal/professional usage of Docker. Quick security tips and tricks. Docker can run in rootless mode, like it was said this morning. So it's better to use this mode by default now than running root mode. Be careful of the moonbind. If you want to access data in your containers, you will create a tunnel between your host and your container. So when you want a container to be isolated, you will create a bridge, not obviously a problematic bridge, but at least a bridge. So be careful, because by default they are on read-write. So everything you modify in the container will have an impact in your host, and reverse is also true. You can moonbind information like config files in read-only, so that the container will access the information. But if your application inside the container is compromised, it will not have an impact on your host. Enforce control of service exposure. You can, in the Docker file, define which ports will be exposed, which service will be exposed, and by default, when you run the container, they will be exposed on all your interfaces. If you want to use them only on your computer, it's better to ensure that the service is exposed only on localhost. I will let you have a look on the configurations commands, but it's easy to expose on localhost instead of all the interfaces you are using, Wi-Fi, Ethernet, because if you do that, anyone on the same network will be able to access your application. Do not use privilege mode and avoid playing with capabilities. If you find on the internet someone that had capabilities on an application, on a Docker command, sorry, if you don't know what it does, try to run it without the add cap option. It will probably run the same, and it won't expose your host to potential breaches. Docker networks can be complex, and by default, all the containers you are running are on the same networks. So if you do multiple container run in different terminal window, all your containers will be able to speak with the other containers. And if you launch a malicious one, it can gather information on all the containers you have launched. So be careful of this. It's not that easy to create network container and isolate your container, but we can do that with the Docker command. It's the same remark as above, just a mistake on my part. Prefer usage of light and hardened images. So I saw this morning the use of Alpine's images, which are the lightest version of a Docker image you can find. It's pretty good because it doesn't include extra stuff. If we can breach your application and we can find extra stuff in the container, it will help find and exploit other vulnerabilities. So the less you have, the less you give to the attacker. Hardened images exist in some technologies, some languages, not all the time, and it doesn't work for all of the use cases, but at least have a look at, does it exist? Can my application work with hardened images? If it can, use them, because they have security features enforced, which will make them more secure. And update your image and application. It's not because you are using Docker, you are running a specific version that you should let it run for years and years in this state. Think about the updates, because the image can be vulnerable over time. Your application can be updated and probably can be less vulnerable over time. So think about the update. Don't forget this part is really important, especially if you deploy your application in a more production-like environment, because if you don't do updates, you will let big breaches in an environment. We don't want breaches to be here. Pay extra attention on what you put in the definition files. It's like pushing a secret to GitLab or GitHub or etc. You can put secrets in the definition file, the Docker file, for example. So avoid doing that. Prefer using the environment solution or the configuration file specific for the secrets, like Docker secrets, for example. The definition file should only contain the installation and configuration parts, but no secrets, no token, no extra. Do you have any question on the development before going through the AI subject? No? No question? Maybe at the end. Everything was clear or everyone is sleeping? Don't know. We'll see later. So AI time. First question, it's like we'll do a poll. What is AI for you? What's the word AI means to you? Because AI is a generic word for at least 3 different usages. So what is AI for you?
Usually generative AI.
Generative AI, okay, that's one. No?
Neural networks and everything that is connected to the modeling or learning.
Yeah, this has a name called machine learning. Yeah, that's the second one. And the third one, probably everyone here use it. So what's his name? It's the technology used by the chatbots. It's the LLM. Have you ever used AI or not? Who in this room haven't used AI? Nobody? Okay. Pretty normal.
We had a lesson yesterday.
Yeah. How often do you use AI? So it can be generative AI, LLM, or machine learning. Both professional and personal use. Yeah?
Every day.
Every day? Okay. Every day? Every day the generative AI, LLM?
No, I work with machine learning. So
Okay. Who uses a chatbot every day, for example? Okay. And do you use AI for personal, professional, or both? Both? Okay. So as all of you know, any product that is released now contains AI, at least for the marketing part. It does not always contain AIs, but the marketing says that it will sell better, so they say that it has AI, even if it's not true. Coding with AI, coding assistants are now available almost everywhere. You probably recognize maybe all those logos, or maybe not, but at least that the main actors, and there are one missing, which is Grok from X, related to the LLM parts. I'm not talking about generative AI and machine learning. I will only focus on the LLM because it's the most used for personal and professional use. So they are all available everywhere, but at a cost. Do you know what is the cost of having those chatbots implemented in almost anything you use?
Everything you write, they can use it.
Yeah. So you are feeding a whole process so that it can be better. So it's a good thing in a way, but it also keeps information you give it for other purposes, but they won't tell you about that. It's okay. Really powerful when correctly used. I'm not here to tell you don't use AI, please. It's not possible, of course. But I'm here to tell you that if you use it correctly, it can be really powerful. And you can keep at least a bit of privacy when using them. Do you know what is this chart? Yeah, you have already seen it? Okay. So this chart is the monthly question asked on Stack Overflow. For those who don't know, the major base of the coding assistance comes from replies on Stack Overflow. So they are trained with the reply on Stack Overflow because many people use them. So the first spike you see here, it's the COVID. Okay. So it's the COVID. So when the COVID happens, many people develop new application and create new questions. But afterwards, there is a ChatGPT release, and then we can see that there are less and less questions on Stack Overflow. What does it mean? It means that the AI assistant will stop grow. Yeah.
And we don't share information anymore. With Stack Overflow, there is a lot of sharing information.
Yeah, we don't share information. They won't enhance their answer. Or so we think. Because they still will. But how they will enhance their question? By using what you give them. Not better models. It can be a way, but it will not explode in the future. If you want really, really good answers, it will have to be fed by new data. And the data comes from what you give them, personally or professionally. So I've made a test just 2 days ago, just for fun. I used ChatGPT, but you can use whatever chatbot you want. I asked it, I want in Python latest version and language guidelines to build a secure form which will ask for 2 things, username and age. Okay? Here is the answer. I can do that, secure web form using Python 3.12 plus and best practices. It will use Flask and Flask WTF, which is the recommended way to handle forms securely in Python web apps. It's pretty true. And here is what it will implement on the top of what I asked. So CSRF protection, server-side validation, input length, type and constraints, no use of unsafe functions, and explicit escaping by default in Jinja 2, which is the template motor for Flask. Does it sound decent for you? Yeah? Sounds decent? No?
I don't know.
Why?
Like, all of these I don't understand.
Ah, you don't understand. At least I can say that it pretty much sounds decent. So what do you don't understand in this? Probably this one. I'm sure most of you don't understand. So this one is okay if you don't take it into account, but the last part you should be able to understand it.
Which one of these is for the storing data? Where the data will be stored or something?
None of them,
No.
because I don't ask to store data. I just want a form, yeah, which will ask the user 2 things, its username and its age. I want it to be secure. So every data that should be given by the user should be well handled by my application to avoid any vulnerabilities. Of course, because I ask that, okay? So from a security perspective, there is problems here that can not. So server-side validation, why not? How will it do it? We will have to check. Inputs and length and type constraints. Our type constraints in Python, it's a really interesting concept, but why not? We can try. And explicit escaping by default. The problem here is by default, okay? Because it will rely on existing security that is not verified. So if in the future there is a problem, I will be directly exposed because I haven't implemented a security layer on top of that because I use the default behavior. okay? So let's have a look at the code he wrote. I won't share the whole code, but I can share the snippet afterward if you want. I will just focus on the part that is interesting for us. First is the class user form, and then it's the routing technique. I will let you have a look, rethink of what he said just before, and see if you can find the problems here. So remember, server-side validation, input type and constraints, default rendering, no use of unsafe functions. Is it true? No? What is missing? You don't know, but you know it's not true because it's a security talk. Okay.
We can maybe for the name make. You don't check if they are good characters. You can use. There is no check if we can inject code in this place.
So.
Integer fields should already perform the task.
No. Yes, for the input type and constraint, but not for the validation. Because using string, I can write an HTML tag, for example. It's still a string, but it will inject code. Okay. So input length and type constraint are okay, but server-side validation are not. Remember that I asked for a secure application. He told me that I've done something about the server-side validation, but there are no server-side validation here. Or if it's data required, it's not a server-side validation. We haven't seen any kind of validation verification on the data provided by the user. So I will just ask the chatbot, I don't think the user field is secure. What is his answer?
Right.
Oh, you're right. It's not secure. What's wrong? Okay. So there are many things wrong. And here is the summary of what's wrong. Remember, I asked for secure code. And these are all those problems that he is able to find just because I said, I don't think it sounds secure. That's a real problem. Character filtering, unique code safety, normalization, injection, double injection, future proof. Okay, but he can do that, right? So building a strong prompt is essential. What I've done just before is not building a strong prompt. Building a strong prompt is defining the exact details of what you want and being the more precise possible to ensure that the chatbot understands what you want and don't do anything. And duping the result is primordial. If you have a dupe, just ask. It will tell you, oh, you're right. It's not secure. And it can also say, your original code did this. I didn't write any code. So it will try to criticize his own works and make you think you did this. But it's not you. You just ask. So be careful when using AI assistants for coding. At least if you are not sure, just dupe it at the end. You will see if it's really secure or not. So just recap on OWASP. So OWASP is Open Worldwide Application Security Project. It's a project consortium that will make categories on the different types of vulnerabilities related to various subjects. Web applications, mobile applications, and LLM. So those are the most common attacks rated from the most used to the least used, related only to LLM. What can we do with LLM? So prompt injection to get more information. Sometimes it will leak information. The supply chain, again, etc., etc. Those are all the categories where we can assign an attack related to LLM. So it's already released. Normally, it takes 2 years for OWASP to release a top 10, but This time it took only 6 months, I think, because this kind of attacks happens every day. I just read this morning a paper on reprompt attacks on Copilot used in GitHub, for example. And the paper said that when you ask Copilot for personal information, it won't give it to you unless you ask twice. The second time it would give it to you and with all the details. So yeah, it can happen. The real problem here is that it's a technology that evolves pretty quickly, and nobody really knows how to put safeguards. So be careful on what you give them, because you don't know how people will retrieve them and what they will do with it. The only things you are sure that all the models nowadays are fed with your data and with data published on the internet. But yeah, that's the counterpart. So how to securely, properly use it, securely, approximately. Be careful of what you ask. Be careful of what you share. If you share a code snippet, remember to remove the secrets, the API keys. Otherwise, you will give them to the chatbot who can share them with the whole world. So yeah, apply security consideration as you would have done when taking a piece of code information coming from an unknown source. It's not because it's a chatbot that you should not dupe the code. You were adopting the code on Stack Overflow, you can do the same with the result of the chatbot. Free and paid plans are almost the same when talking about security. They said that if you paid, we won't train our model on your data. It's probably not really true, especially with the chatbot coming from other countries, because they have not the same rules about privacy. So in Europe, we are pretty much safe when we use European products, but aside from Mistral AI and other few products not really well known, the other will use different rules. So yeah. And don't let it do all the works. Think of it as an assistant and not a slave which will do your work. If you want an application, ensure that you at least know the language or at least able to verify the results. Otherwise, it can lie to you, gives you pretty bad results, false results, or creates vulnerable code, even for your personal questions. Do you have any question, any remarks, or subjects you want to discuss related to security in this talk or outside of this talk?
How could we improve ourselves regarding all these questions, apart from listening to persons like you who are specialists in the field? How personally could we be better at these things?
Probably by seeking for security guidelines. Yeah, because in the OWASP website, we will be able to find, not directly in the website, but going through your browser or search engine. Yeah, and adding the word OWASP, you will find guidelines for almost everything related to development and implementation. They also cover hardware implementation, infrastructure, operating system implementation, etc., etc. Yeah. Thinking for guidelines, security guidelines, because they always implement security, is a good start point.
One fascinating LLM security thread that I found was using hallucinations to make packages that are not real but often hallucinated by the chatbots, and use that to, find it very clever too.
Yeah, one of the most common ways to bypass security implemented on LLM chatbots is the confusion. So you ask for something, and in between you ask for something else completely different on another subject. So you ask for a piece of code and then ask what's the color of the sky, and then return to your code. So the LLM will try to find a connection between those two subjects and will drop security barriers that are in place. We don't really understand why now, probably in the future, I hope. But now there is no... we are better at sharing information with chatbots than securing them. And the real problem is that we connect everything to the chatbot, which is connected to internet. So we make everything internet-facing assets, which was not the case with really constrained environments like nuclear development or etc. So it will regulate over time, but as of now, it's a really good way to have fun as an attacker. Yeah.
Did you think that it's possible to become anonymous and delete all the information that we give into the internet at this point? If you want to become
fully anonymous? Probably by asking one thing at a time, changing computer internet connection every time you ask one question, and do not use any accounts, and probably rotating IPs from different countries, so pretty hard. Yeah. Probably not, because you have the same behavior. In the future, we will probably be able to analyze user behavior and make them comparable and say, oh, that's the same person who wrote in those two prompts.
And I have a second question.
Yeah.
I don't know if it exists that you can show us some little tests that we can verify before, for example, in GitLab or GitHub, before a merge request, we can maybe verify is all the packages is the original packages, or if there's something wrong in the code. I don't know if a simple test is available.
So for the static analysis, it's pretty easy to find example, but for the packages, it's not really the CI that will verify that the package itself is the original one. You will probably need a specific package manager installed in your office, for example, and this package manager will implement security bricks that will trust or not, or at least you will have to manually validate each new version to say that it's available in the package repository or not. So that's how you control the thing, but it will need quite a few resources, human and technical resource. It won't be plug and play. At least static analyzer and secret detection can be plug and play in GitLab.
Just a comment for the room. There are a few tools that we mentioned during the week, and we haven't really used them, like Rough, like others that I will show tomorrow actually, and you will use at least 2 security static analyzer tomorrow morning for the code. So I'm taking notes of what we can use.
Yeah.
Other questions?
May I ask something, because I use in my professional context AI, and it's stipulated that no data that are entered by people in this context are used for training. But I have a doubt about that, because I've read that some other society can find kind of result of your training.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that they used all the data for the training, even the professional ones, and they try to not make it public. The only way to avoid that is to host your own model and to create your chatbot and host it to avoid relying on external services. But saying that your professional data are not used to train the model is probably completely false. And we will know with the first data leak when it comes.
May I ask you to add in the paper all the links for tools?
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
yeah, sure.
Because I will try to do a part, but I will forget some of them, I'm sure. So if you can have a look, that's
Okay.
nice.
Sure.
Okay. No more questions? If not,
Okay.
thanks again.
Thank you, everyone.